Hi there, I'm Max, and I have a question for you. Well, actually a couple if you'll permit me. Do you play video games? Were you once a child? Did you enjoy classics like Super Metroid, Mario 64, or even Ape Escape 3 growing up, but played them so many times that when you try to replay them as an adult, you find yourself reactivating muscle memory unintentionally, leading you to basically just go through the motions of a game that you once loved, only to find out that even though it's the same game, it's of course not the same, and it can never actually be the same game again, and that it doesn't fill you with the sense of childlike wonder and amazement that it did when you were 11, and in doing so force yourself to confront the passage of time and the degradation of your lived experience in real time, thus defeating the purpose of a nostalgia trip and instead forcing you to realize that the world you were born into no longer exists? Well, if you answered yes to any two of those three questions, have I got the brand new healing salve for you. It's called an Archipelago.
But Max, what does that have to do with gaming and putting off existential dread? Everyone knows that archipelagos are a chain, cluster, or collection of islands like the Indonesian archipelago, for example.
Thank you for asking, tiny version of me, but also, shut the fuck up. Because I'm not talking about no goddamn geographic phenomena today. Maybe one day I'll talk about all my favorite little island clumps, of which I have many, to be sure. Shout out Vestamana Air. But today is not that day. Instead, I want to take you on a journey to a place that is both a newfound land ripe for exploration, but also one that you've known all along. So join me as I give you the sales pitch here on why you should play an archipelago. So I trust that my attention grabber of an opening there has garnered your attention, to which I of course must thank my 8th grade English teacher for her invaluable lessons on essay structure. Now, if 40 seconds ago was the first time since 8th grade geography class that you heard the word archipelago, you probably have some questions. Well, probably just the one.
What the fuck?
Which, fair. I feared that I must move the goalposts ever so slightly here because an archipelago is somewhat of a compound concept. There are things that you must know and understand before you can understand what an archipelago is. And like any good YouTuber who's trying to stretch the runtime while still retaining viewers, it now falls to me to walk the perilous path of catching you up to speed while hopefully not boring you. We'll see how that goes. Now, there are a few concepts that make up an archipelago here. Really, one big one with a couple smaller supporting ones. The big one here is what's known as a randomizer. Now, a randomizer is not exactly a new concept, with some of the earlier versions being dated back to the late 90s if this Reddit post is to be believed. It probably can't be believed, but who cares? If you weren't familiar, you may be able to just use your general knowledge of words in the English language to guess at what it is. A randomizer, like the name would suggest, is a mod to a game that randomizes various aspects of it. No, not like that. A randomizer won't actually make anything that's totally new for a game. If you're doing a Link to the Past randomizer, you're not going to randomly find Bowser somewhere. Instead of that, what a randomizer will normally do is to take certain aspects of a game, be it items, skills, enemies, etc., take them from where they should be, put them all in a big hat, and then pull from that hat randomly to fill in all of those absent slots. Technically, it might be more accurate to call it a shuffleizer, but that doesn't really roll off the tongue as well now, does it? Depending on the game in question, the extent of what the mod affects varies wildly. Some of the earliest randomizers were classic Nintendo games like Link to the Past, Super Metroid, Pokemon, etc., where things like items and enemies could be shuffled around easily, causing the player to throw out everything they knew about the game's traditional progression path and adapt to a completely unique playthrough every time. For example, a Pokemon Red randomizer could not only make it so that your starter choices go from the 3 OGs to Lickitung, Gengar, and Onix, but also so that when you use your level 9 Gengar to lick Brock's team to death, you may find that instead of being rewarded with the expected Boulder Badge, you instead receive a shiny new Great Ball.
Please welcome our new
Boulder Badge.
Squidward tentacles!
Yippee. Now, from that example, if you're familiar with Pokemon Red, the logical next question is, well, how do you get past Pewter City without that badge? How do you progress past Fuchsia without Surf? And like, I don't fucking know, but rest assured that the game does. See, when it comes to modern randomizers, just about anyone worth its salt will have implemented a custom logic sequence. What that means is that although the game puts every item into a big sack and pulls randomly for the placements, it will only do so in a way that allows you to actually complete the game. Meaning that if there is an absolute requirement, such as, say, the key to the second floor in Super Mario 64, the game will make sure that the key itself is not found on the second floor. Basically prevents a cycle of Well, I need X item to get Y item, but I can't get X item without Y item. And as mentioned, the specifics of what is affected by randomizers are unique to each game, and thanks to how much the genre and scene have grown and become more and more developed over the last few years, we're at a point now where you can usually easily customize which parts of a game remain the same as what you'd expect and which ones will change. The same tools that allow you to select the option that could lead you to starting in Pallet Town with a Gengar are the ones that will ensure that said Gengar still learns Dream Eater at level 38 if you want. You could also say fuck it and randomize all that and wind up with a Gengar that knows Water Gun right out of the gate. Why not? Either way, that's all in your control. In general, the one thing that remains the same between the vanilla and most default randomized versions of the game is your end goal. Beat the game, right? Just like when you first played Red and Blue, you need to beat the Elite Four and become the champion. You don't need to do absolutely everything, get every item in the world, and do all of that to complete it. You will just likely end up becoming the champion in somewhat of an ass-backwards way. You could find Surf and the needed badge in Viridian Forest and end up going to Cinnabar Island as your first town. The popularity of randomizers has led them to expand to games and genres that would seem impossible or at the very least unsuited to the task at first glance. But the dedicated communities have never let a silly thing like a developer's intended path and design vision stop them from hitting shuffle on their playlist. For example, take a game like Kingdom Hearts 2. Which, though it is of course a fairly linear action RPG, is made usable with randomizers through a mod that basically changes the entire game structure to be level based instead of a set sequence. This has a great effect on speeding up a playthrough and also means that you never once have to touch the gummy ship, which is a huge plus for me. There's a reason the GDQ runs use these as karaoke breaks, guys.
To defeat the Huns, did send me daughters.
The point is, in the modern day, nothing is safe from the randomizer community. So what does all this matter, right? Well, now it's time to take the big step, the huge leap in logic between what a randomizer is and an archipelago. Because what if, as part of your randomized item pool, you could find not just your items, but items for an entirely different game? Back around 2018 or so, the world was introduced to the world of SMZ3, aka Super Metroid Zelda 3. Or as we Gaijins would say in America, Super Metroid Zelda: A Link to the Past. This program was a ROM hack unlike anything seen before or really since. A randomizer for two games simultaneously where you bounce back and forth between the two of them constantly. Link can walk into a cave and come out the other side as Samus exiting a door. Samus can detonate a spot to reveal what should be a hidden energy pack and instead send Link the hookshot, etc, etc. To complete SMZ3, players would have to progress in both games simultaneously until eventually they obtain what they needed to complete each game. It remains one of the most unique and impressive game mods I've ever seen, and it didn't take long for someone to expand on this concept. Only a few years later would see the release of the Archipelago program, a program designed to allow randomizers of various games to communicate with one another and more importantly, send items between them. That means that now your pewter badge, instead of being in the Safari Zone or the power plant, could be in the Temple of Time, literally a whole world away. See, the Archipelago program is essentially a randomizer hub. You tell the program what games you would like to play, feed it your desired randomizer settings in the form of YAML files, and it spits out a seed that is shuffled around all of the various items and the unlocks not just around one game, but around the entire pool of games. The way it works is that each game has a certain number of checks. These range from game to game, but can be both traditional things like items you can find in Pokeballs and Pokemon, and completely new things that the game usually doesn't actually have a tangible reward for, like beating a chapter in Fire Emblem Sacred Stones. Archipelago identifies every randomized quantity in each game and files it as a check. Said checks are then sent out and placed in the spot of other checks throughout the pool. So completing Chapter 2 in Sacred Stones, despite not giving the player a physical item, is a check, and could provide a different game with something useful, like the Master Ball. The goal here is to progress through each game and acquire items for every game until each one is able to be completed. It's a little complicated, but let me break it down for you as simple as I can here. Let's take three games that I've brought up in some form as an example here. Kingdom Hearts 2, Pokemon Red, and Super Mario 64. In this hypothetical, I boot up Kingdom Hearts 2 first, and right away have access to Olympus Coliseum. I jump in, I save Meg, and start opening chests in the first few areas. I find a few normal Kingdom Hearts items, and then eventually I open a chest and find this. This item is essentially a placeholder, telling me that I've found an item that belongs in another game, though from this generic thing, I can't really determine what I've found. at least not in Kingdom Hearts 2. Some games will actually tell you what item is being sent to another game, others will just say Archipelago item or something to that effect. Then, I keep playing through the level as best I can until eventually I no longer have any other items or checks to find available to me. Since I've done everything that I can in Kingdom Hearts 2 for the moment, I am stuck. I decide to then put that game down and pick up Pokemon Red. Ooh, would you look at that? It's even got a custom title screen. How nice. I start a game naming myself Fucknut, and am presented with an option of choosing between Aerodactyl, Mr. Mime, and Geodude as my starter. Since Geodude is weak, and as a 10-year-old I wouldn't exactly feel comfortable running around with John Wayne Gacy over here, I take Aerodactyl and smash Batol's teeth in. I also see that I've received an item from the Archipelago which corresponds to the item that Sora found in that chest in Olympus Coliseum. What Sora sees as Archipelago item comes to me as TM12 Water Gun. What shitty luck, as that is useless to Aerodactyl.
Them's the breaks.
I make my way through Viridian Forest and even snag myself a Nidorina for my trouble. Since Sora also sent over a Moonstone, I now have a free Nidoqueen, which can learn Water Gun. I take that over to Brock only to find out that he's a lame-ass poser who's biting my style already with a Nidoqueen of his own.
He copied my whole fucking flow! Word for word, bar for bar!
Unfortunately for him, however, his Nido is a punk-ass bitch who couldn't even spit on me and I wiped the floor with him. And as a reward for making a grown man presumably cry, Fucknut receives the Soul Badge. Funny coincidence that he does still end up giving me a badge, but that does happen sometimes. I continue on to Mount Moon, where eventually I find more of what I'm looking for, AP items. This is what the Archipelago items in Pokemon Red take the form of. Since I've made a good amount of progress here and found some more Archipelago items, I decide to pop over and start up the playthrough of Super Mario 64. We can see right off the bat, even in the opening cutscene, I'm receiving a few items that the other games have sent. Mario starts his playthrough and jumps into the Bob-omb Battlefield painting, which of course does not take him to Bob-omb Battlefield, but instead Cool Mountain. I get the stars in there and send some items to the other games. One of these items allows Sora to go to a new world, so he's no longer stuck, and so I hop back over to him and resume playing. With that roadblock removed, I can keep playing each of the games at my own discretion, and the cycle repeats until eventually, Sora throws hands with Mansex, Mario blows up Bowser with an IED, and Batol gets yelled at by his grandfather for not being a responsible pet owner. At which point, Archipelago completed. What I just described to you was a generic, typical asynchronous archipelago. Asynchronous in the sense that you play through the games one at a time, but this is not the only way to do it. In fact, it's not really the intended way to play it. See, the intended way of playing an archipelago requires the first minor building block I mentioned earlier, which is having friends.
F is for friends who do stuff together. U is for you and me.
Because everything that I described was a single player phenomena, but the Archipelago system is designed for multiplayer. Once you generate the random seeds for all the games, you then create a room which keeps track of all the unlocks and distributes them as needed to each game. So the ideal way to play an Archipelago is to grab some friends and have everyone play their own game. Because of this, the beauty in an Archipelago is twofold. Not only does it give you a chance to play a game that you know in a brand new and totally unique way, it also turns single-player games into multiplayer fun. And because the program essentially just moves everything around, there's no worries about compatibility between specific games. If a game is compatible with Archipelago, it's compatible with every other game in it. As an example here, I'm currently in the middle of one with my friends, and our chosen games are Ocarina of Time, Pokemon Emerald, Hollow Knight, Celeste, Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga, Hades, Mario Kart Double Dash, and Dark Souls 2. All running just like normal once we got past setup. All of these games are, aside from Double Dash and Dark Souls 2 of course, entirely 100% single player. And each one of my friends chose these games because they're games that they love and have played several times but are overly familiar with them. See, as I mentioned earlier, a randomizer essentially forces you to rethink everything you know about how to progress in the game. You might get an item early that unlocks a late game dungeon, only to find the key to exit the tutorial in that final dungeon. It forces you to adapt, to improvise, and think of new ways to tackle basic problems. And throwing in multiple games and multiple players only compounds this enjoyment. As a result, it becomes a much more winding road than even a normal randomizer possibly could. Because instead of saying, I don't have item X, it's around here somewhere, I'll just look around until I find it, you open up the possibility of, I don't have item X, it might be in my friend's game. And that mentality makes you want to explore every nook and cranny of your game to the utmost extent. After all, you don't want to be the one who missed a chest in Majula and prevented your friend from getting their slingshot and had them stuck in the Lost Woods for 30 minutes. Now, just to be clear, not every game in the world is compatible with Archipelago, of course. It takes some very smart and very dedicated people to incorporate a game into the system, particularly if it's one that needs additional changes or restructuring to become non-linear. But the website has the official list of built-in supported games, and as of the time of writing here, there are almost 80 games you can use. And if you count the ones that are in progress but still playable, the list goes to over 250. We're talking all over the board here, people. You name it, we could potentially have it. The Simpsons Hit and Run, got it. Sonic the Hedgehog, of course. Sonic Adventure, it's right here, dude. Sonic Adventure 2, you know we got it. Sonic Heroes, oh, I think it's around here somewhere. It's right fucking here. Shadow the Hedgehog? Oh, now let's not get crazy, guys. I mean, of course we fucking got it. What's that? Sonic's not your preferred flavor of good-looking anthropomorphic animals? Well, why didn't you say so, dog? We got Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoon is right here for you. And if for whatever reason none of that does it for you, don't even trip, because we got so many more. Dark Souls 3, FNAF World, Cuphead, Undertale, League of Legends. Super Mario World, The Witness. I could go on and on and on and on here. My point is to say, if you have enough of an interest in video games to have made it this far into the video, there is something here for you. And therein lies the third and final little block for us here. Games. The list is massive here, and it ranges from all over the medium of video games. There are many modern games that you may have just sitting in a Steam library, or there are many other games that are on older, outdated consoles that can be easily emulated and modded with a lot of dedicated programs to help automate the more complicated aspects. I'm not going to go over every possible game on the list and the details of how they get randomized or changed for 3 reasons here. Number 1, fuck that, didn't you hear me just say how many games there were? I don't have all day. Number 2, I don't know, and you shouldn't know. Part of the fun and exploration comes from not knowing and having to find out firsthand as you progress. And 3, Archipelago is an active project with more games added all the time. I said earlier almost 80 games as of writing because it's possible that by the time this gets recorded and edited and put out, the next update is out and now there's like 85. If you want an unforgettable experience with your friends that allows you to each explore a game that you individually love but do it together as a group, then look no further. What my friends and I like to do is we all hop on a Discord call and everyone just screen shares their screen, and then we can kind of pop in and check out how each other's doing or show each other the various funniest things and changes, etc, etc, and I cannot recommend doing this enough. Each player also signs into the text client, which will act as a feed for everyone to see who's sending each other what items, as well as a source of hints if you need to know where a specific item is. And all the progress is tracked by the server, so if you aren't able to complete the games in one sitting, all you need to do is just log back onto the link and anyone can continue playing either asynchronously or together. If you and your friends are looking for something to do together but can never agree on what game to play, here's something that is the best of both worlds, and is also, depending on what games you choose, completely free of charge as an open internet project. I won't go over the details of how to set up and run all of the programs and rooms here, as there are countless guides on how to do so, both the official and non-official ones, but I will have the official archipelago.gg page linked in the description, where you can find a list of all the officially supported games, the download links to all the required programs, and detailed setup guides for each of the fully supported games. And as someone who fears coding and doing anything custom with my PC at the best of times, I must say that setup of the program itself is relatively painless. Well, most of the time. As much as I do love the software, I would be remiss not to mention that, just as that one veggie said,
nothing is perfect.
There are 2 issues that I want to highlight as main problems here. And I'm telling you these not to dissuade you, of course, as I don't think either of them are insurmountable issues, but just to be completely honest based on my previous experiences with the program, so that you have the full picture of what to expect when you look to run an Archipelago yourself. These 2 issues are the check counts / compatibility and the setup. As I mentioned earlier, the check count of an Archipelago is the total of all checks available to find throughout all games within the pool. Unfortunately, due to the nature of how customizable the random settings are for each game, there is no way to tell ahead of time how many checks a game will have. Now, this isn't anything crazy, right? But consider that as a result, it's very easy to choose 2 games that sound similar enough in theory, maybe same general length, similar playtimes and goals, etc., only to have one end up with 1100 checks and the other to have like 8.
Oh, no.
If I pair Dark Souls 3 with Super Mario 64, the odds are that I will never find anything I need in my world and will instead be sending my friend 7 Titanite shards in each painting. While all games are compatible with one another, that does not mean they make good pairs. Just because you can doesn't mean you should here. Some of these might be fairly obvious, like Maybe if you're looking to have a good fun with your friend, it would be a bad idea for you to pick Celeste 64, a game jam game that is at most 40 minutes long, and your friend to pick old school RuneScape, where 40 minutes gets you like what? Level 8 in something? In fact, just don't even do that one, unless everybody on some huge multi-day, huge game bullshit. My friends have tried it several times, and the only time it was remotely successful and didn't just result in people being blocked for hours was when everyone did OSRS. But I digress. It is very tricky to determine what games are compatible with another. The easiest impulse would be to try and align the check count, right? While that can help a bit, some games can be long with very few checks or vice versa. Sacred Stones, for example, can still take you a while to play through but only has like 40 checks total. Compare that to Hollow Knight, a game that you can blaze through in a couple hours if you know what you're doing, and that has 250. So then the second thought would be, if not the checks, maybe like the overall length? While this isn't a bad idea, the trouble is that again, prior to booting up the game in Archipelago mods, it's really hard to tell how the changes made for the game to be randomized will affect that length. For example, Kingdom Hearts 2 is a meaty game, but your average randomized playthrough will clock in below the fastest of speedrun records for the vanilla games, maybe 2 or 3 hours, versus something like Stardew Valley, which unless you set some specific limitations and even then get really lucky with the items people send you, you're probably looking at something around 20 to 30 hours minimum. My point is, this is really tough to know ahead of time. So unfortunately, the best piece of advice I can give is to just experiment and have patience. Sometimes someone is going to pick a game that sounds good. Everyone's going to sign off on it, be like, yep, that sounds good, that matches up to what we want, that is a good fit, hooray, be a blast. And then as soon as you're in the trenches with your games, it is just going to absolutely fuck everything up. Whether due to a huge influx of basically meaningless checks, randomizer-induced difficulty spikes, length incompatibility, etc., etc. My friends and I have done, I think 6 or 7 of these at this point, and I can honest to God say that it has never been perfect. I think the best way to do it is to just trust your gut and play around a bit over a few different sessions. If someone wants to do a bigger game, but you don't have anything like that, maybe you pick 2 smaller games, while everyone else picks 1. It's not illegal, I won't tell anybody. Just have some patience and trust that the first couple times might be a bit rough around the edges, and some people may spend a bit more time watching paint dry than they would like. Just gotta live and learn. A follow-up to this point as well. One thing you need to understand is that as you add more and more people and games, the path gets twistier and twistier. Make sure you understand that and tailor your game choices appropriately. If you're playing with a large group, it might be best to choose games that are not as easily blocked, so you minimize the time spent twiddling your thumbs. Or as some of my friends have assured me, it's called BK-ing, I guess in reference to one of the original guys getting stuck and deciding to go to Burger King. I don't know if that's true, that's what they told me, so if this is a lie, that is your fault, John. Thank you. They should like work in that to the Archipelago software somehow. Like when's the Archipelago dropping for Sneak King is what I'm saying. It's really not that hard to find yourself in a situation of Alex needs the Ocarina of Time, which is in Eric's game, but Eric can't get to its location without this item from Tyler, and Tyler can't get that without this upgrade from me, and I would love to send it to him, but I just used a hint, and turns out it's basically at the end of my game.
One eternity later.
And eventually, once I get that item to Tyler and he sends it to Eric and so on, and the chain resolves, someone else will find something they need that spawns a similar chain 10 minutes later. Just know what you're getting yourself into, is all I'm saying. The other issue that I have to address is the setup guides. While, as mentioned, the main games included in the Archipelago program are for the most part fairly straightforward to set up, games that are part of the unofficial / in progress support category are not as vetted, and as a result, the setup instructions can be extremely unclear for anyone without a CS degree. If you've ever tried to follow the instructions on a random GitHub page, then you probably have an idea of what you're in for. It's usually nothing insurmountable, but it can sometimes end up being a case where you just gotta throw shit at the wall and see what sticks to get some of these to work. The way you know that everything is ready to go is to look at the text client. When a player joins the room from their client, it will say that so-and-so has joined viewing game XYZ. Once the game itself connects to the client, the feed will say that player such and such has joined playing game XYZ. From that point on, once you start playing the game, provided you set everything up correctly with the randomizer and seed, it should start to send and receive items to and from each game. I would highly recommend you plan ahead. Have each player try to set up the program and maybe generate a trial run of their game before you start. No matter how confident you are, something will pop up, even with the fully supported games. I would say on average, if my friends and I sit down to play at 7, and someone is playing a game not on the fully supported list, we are lucky if our runs start at 8. Just stay patient and try and troubleshoot as best you can. A lot of the specific games have setup guides and dedicated video tutorials available either in like their GitHub pages, their specific channels in the Discord, on the main game page, etc, etc. This issue is usually nothing crazy, but it can be frustrating and depending on the chosen games can occur often enough to where I felt like I had to at least mention it. You don't have to be a computer scientist to see the hard work and effort that goes into a program like this and the value that comes from it. The Archipelago software is absolutely one of the most impressive pieces of software that I've seen in a long time when it comes to games and mods. For me, it's a revolutionary way to play so many games from all throughout my life, all the way from things I played as a kid to things I've enjoyed in the last couple years. Being able to facilitate playing all of these games together with my friends, as well as allowing me to revisit games I haven't played since I was a kid, but that I remember so vividly and so well, and see how they've held up while also experiencing them in a whole new way, is honestly just a 10 out of 10 experience that I cannot recommend enough. I hope that everything I said here is enough to motivate you to try it yourself. I know I just spent some time on these major issues here at the end, but the issues are by no means insurmountable and shouldn't discourage you from trying it out for yourself. I brought those up more as just a disclaimer so that you know what to expect and don't get frustrated if it doesn't work right out of the gate. Just stick with it and do your best. There's a lot of guides out there to help you set it up if you find issues. It will be worth it. Just trust me. Thanks for watching. I'm glad that I was actually able to get this out before the end of the year. I want to try and do more stuff next year. Right now I'm going through and uploading all of my old trivia videos that I used to make on TikTok, over 3 years ago now that I did them. Just kind of why not, since they've just been sitting around. And you know what? They've actually been doing fairly well, so I'm thinking that when I run out, I might try and pick them up kind of where I left off. But you know what? We will have to see. You will have to see if you stick around by subscribing. And when I run out in, I think, a little over 2 months, maybe around there, you can see what I decide to do based on how much time I have on my hands. But thank you very much for watching. Go try out an Archipelago, and I will see you next time. Thanks.